the Baen Free Radio Hour.
Hello and welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour. This week, Griffin Barber is talking to a few of the fantastic artists who have created some of the most memorable art that has graced our covers here at Baen. Join Sam Kennedy, Dan Dos Santos, and Pierluigi Abbondanza as we discuss art and inspiration. And later, we continue with the serialization of One Jump Ahead by Mark L. Van Name, Part 39. Hello and welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour. I'm your host, Griffin Barber, and I'm joined by artists Pierluigi Abbondanza, Dan Dos Santos, and Sam Kennedy, whom I have coerced into joining me for a discussion on illustration, inspiration, and commerce. Hello and welcome all. Please introduce yourself for your fans, and we'll start with Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam Kennedy. I've been painting for Baen for 15 years. I'm getting close to 50 covers. I don't know if I've crossed that barrier yet or not, but I'm getting close.
Very cool. And Pierluigi.
Hi, my name is Pierluigi. I'm painting from Baen since 2 years, 1 year and a half, and I'm working at my 5th cover for Baen. So that's gone.
Yeah, it's a good start.
And
I'm Dan Santos. Hello, guys. I've been painting for Baen. I don't know how long. It's got to be pushing 20 years. And I'm well known in the sci-fi fantasy industry for doing a lot of urban fantasy book covers. And I'm happy to say I think I've probably worked for nearly every major publisher, but Baen is certainly one of my favorites. So thanks for having me.
So I wanted to kind of get started on general background kind of thing. And one of the specific things, what was so cool about illustration that you decided to pursue it, and then you decided to pursue it professionally as well?
Speaking of general backgrounds, how come I don't have the cool background here?
I sent one in the email.
Oh, did you? I don't know that I got the email. Maybe not. I'll check for it. Sorry.
Yes, they call that hoisted by your own petard, right?
Yeah.
But so we'll start with you, Dan. What kind of drew you to illustration in the first place, and then maybe the subject matter as well, and then finally to do it professionally?
I may be like the wrong person to ask because I knew this is what I wanted to do at 15, and I never deviated from that. I knew I loved art, and I think my perception of the arts was just limited by my knowledge of the arts. That I grew up in an immigrant family, so we didn't have a lot of books around, and I didn't really know what illustration was. So I was looking at comic books. I was looking at, I had discovered Michael Whalen's artwork, but it wasn't on book covers. It was in Airbrush Action magazine and stuff like that. And it wasn't until one of my teachers told me that she was like, "Oh, what you like is called illustration. You should look into that." And I was just like, "That's it. That's it." From that point on, that's quite literally the only thing I've pursued.
And you still remember that teacher's name, I'm sure?
Yeah, that one, it was a couple. It was Stephen Stroud was my longtime mentor, is the one that really kind of like showed me what I needed to do. And then my high school art teacher, Miss G, I think is the one that also helped me out identifying it.
I had a similar experience with writing because, you rarely found in an English class anything cool that you wanted to read. It was usually something that was, assigned reading, and it was not what you necessarily wanted to read. And one of my English professors in school, in high school, brought in Twelfth Night as a graphic novel.
Oh, cool.
And he's like, the medium doesn't matter. It's the message. It's what you're saying that really matters. But varying the medium can get you access to so many more fans and more people to read what you're doing. If you can vary the medium, it's definitely a process that will benefit you in the long run. And the fact that there was cool stuff, that blended two things: a comic book, basically, and this history of the English language and Shakespeare, right? So
yeah, it really does depend on subject matter so much. The same, I never wanted to really read in high school because I felt the reading was stodgy, and now I'm an avid sci-fi fantasy reader. And if we showed sci-fi fantasy art in art school the way we showed Da Vinci and Michelangelo, I think we'd have a lot better artists nowadays.
For sure. And you, Pierluigi?
I have always been fascinated by images, especially cover images. So when I went to the news kiosk with my mother, I was always look around and I grabbed magazines like animal magazines or anything that has a beautiful cover that I like. And I forced my mother to buy the magazine for me, even if I wasn't able to read anything, but I just wanted to see the cover. My father is a comic book reader, also a book reader, so also a painter. So I grew up looking at him reading and painting. So it was like my environment, natural environment. But I never thought to be a profession for me. So until I was 26, I didn't draw or paint much. I didn't study academic school or art school, anything like that. I was like information technology employee. And when I was 26, I discovered the digital painting with Color Painter. I saw the first images that now I don't like anymore, but at the time were amazing for me. And I bought my first graphic tablet and started using it without any kind of knowledge of the software, of anything. Image creation, I didn't know anything. So I took some online courses back in 2013, I think, the first one in USA. So the first was Visual Art Passage. I studied with John Foster, which taught me the foundation, Ed Kinsella, John English, Sterling Handley, and lately I met Dan. I had the lucky to meet Dan and the perseverance to chase to chase him, to have him as a teacher, because I really wanted to study with him. And so this is I understood like 4 or 5 years ago that it could have been a job for me.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting
it all started when a person put some of my paintings on online, and an editor on Facebook. An editor saw them and then asked me to do a comic book cover, and then from there everything started.
Very cool.
Naturally.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So when I was 20, actually, I guess I was 30, but it kind of a similar thing to you. I had always wanted to write, but I never finished anything. Right. So I had never really done it, but I was a cop. I'd been a cop for 14 years at the time, or 12 years at the time. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to finally settle down and write this. And yeah, just a few years later, I was my first published novel. So yeah, I totally get that. It's interesting because, you know, Dan talking about from 15, knowing this is what he wanted to do, and being driven to do it, and educating himself all the way along. And then some of us sitting around with it kind of in our back pocket, thinking that maybe we ought to do that. And so it's kind of cool to me that I wouldn't say it's never too late, but it's certainly not too late, right? If you have the drive to kind of go pursue it, that's really cool. And Sam, what's your story?
Yeah, boy, it's not too far different from everyone else's. I did not know what illustration was. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. I spent a lot of time drawing, looking at comics. We didn't even have like media in the house for the most part. And so, you know, I watched cartoons whenever I was at my friend's house. And then I went to college as a pre-med major, and was there for a couple years. And then one day, by accident, I just walked into a building I'd never been on before, and they had figure drawings up. And I ran to the office and said, "What is this?" And they said, "This is illustration. We teach you how to make a living as an artist." And that was the moment for me, you know, that I realized, okay, this is what I want to do.
Where
And
was
I
that,
was
Sam?
yeah, I was
That
20,
at your school?
what's that?
Where was that you saw that?
Brigham Young University.
Very good art department, especially for sci-fi fantasy
Yeah.
and writing department. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's how I got into that. And then about 4 years after that, graduated just as video games were ramping up. And so I took my poor art skills and got into video game studios, and have just been training ever since. Training for 27 years now. So
Wow,
Hmm.
very cool. Yeah, that's we have three very distinct stories here on how people got started and kind of worked their way into it. That's really cool. It shows you that, again, not too late, and certainly not, you can be of diverse interests. And one of the things I was thinking about was, is it Vitruvian Man? The medical, in pre-med, you got the guy, and he's being dissected or showing off the muscle groups, etc. So, and what is that except for medical technical illustration in its first order kind of
yeah.
thing? So that's pretty interesting as well. So talk a little bit about a little bit about your approach to designing a new illustration for a cover, because it's kind of on demand, right? You're being requested or commissioned to do something, and kind of, if you can, give us a little bit of your process for doing that. And I'll start with Pierluigi because I picked on everybody else so far first.
It's a bit different every time. It depends on the timeline I have to do a cover. It depends if it's a comic cover or a book cover. It's a bit different because for comics, I only do like pinups. And for book covers, I have to be more involved in the story. I have to know this, which is the story, who are the characters, and so the set of the mood of the cover too. So I usually read a part of the book to have an idea. Sometimes the editor asks me for a specific thing that he wants to have on the cover.
Right.
And so it's not every time the same, but it usually starts with words. So I made a list of words, and then I try to visualize something that connects these words, and try to compose the image in a way that is, I hope, beautiful for the viewer and attracting, and that has spaces for the text. So and then I start sketching, and then from the sketch I do the 3-value composition in order to see how to make the figure stand out from the background, etc. How it looks in small, if it's understand what is on the cover when you look at the cover small.
Right.
And then I paint it in the final stage.
And how long does that take you, roughly, that whole process?
Oh, it depends on the cover. If I have to rush, 5 days.
Wow.
For the comics, also 2-3 days for the comics.
Yeah.
For the book, if I have to rush a lot, it's 5 days, morning to night, every day.
We've never asked for rush jobs.
I prefer to work a bit more relaxed because I have the possibility to address some errors that I cannot see if I do a rush thing.
Yeah, for sure. And Dan?
Pretty similar. So I usually like to have 2 weeks for a typical job. I paint traditionally, which just takes a long time to do, and it takes dry time, and it has to dry before I photograph it. So I kind of have to build that into the timeline. But I typically book a job every 2 weeks, mostly because that's what gets my bills paid. I gotta produce 2 covers a month. So of that 2 weeks, I usually spend about 1 week planning and 1 week execution. So 1 week will be me reading the manuscript, doing sketches, booking models, shooting reference, redoing my comp, all that stuff, getting approval. And then 1 week is just play Star Trek reruns and get it painted. And for me, the sketch phase is maybe the most intensive phase for me, that I tend to do really over the top color, almost finished looking sketches, just because color is so important to me visually, that sketching in black and white just never really does a good job of explaining the ideas that I have or that I want the client to see. So I usually do those. I do digitally, my color sketches, and then once I get approval on that, then it's it's embarking on the final oil painting for me.
Cool. And Sam?
Um, hmm. I don't want to say. Oh, I do thumbnail out. You know, 2 to 3, 4 ideas, and send them to Tony. And once that gets approved, then I look for assets, either 3D or photos, and sometimes I'll model my own assets or take my own photos. But if I can buy them, you know, that usually is a good, you know, faster method for me. And I'll start working like a matte painter. You know, I'll drop those in to my composition that I thumbnailed out, and then just start painting over it to make it all work together. And I usually have a pretty good idea where I'm going lighting wise, and less of an idea about color as I, you know, approach things. Um, I try to. I'm usually aware of the drama. I think about the drama and the action and the kind of the graphic design of the picture, um, as I'm planning it. Um, and it takes me about 2 days from start to finish,
Wow.
uh, doing that method.
Days?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you sleep?
Now, well, yeah. I sleep well. I sleep too. So most times, you know, it varies, of course, depending on the complexity of the subject. You know, if I'm only doing a figure or two, and I can get a 3D model to pose that for me, right? And even find some clothing, and I can never find exactly what I want, right? So I'm always going to be doing some little paint overs, you know, and working the reference into what I want it to be. But yeah, I can it 16 hours is about how long it'll take me to do like a 2 figure cover.
Right.
So
So that's a really, you know, on the opposite end of the spectrum. We got Dan with waiting for the paint to dry. He's got to spend probably about 16 hours doing that over
yeah.
the course
I
of
think I
that week,
probably
right?
spend, yeah,
Yeah.
I invest 30 hours just in sketches. Stupidly. Like I usually about 1 sketch a day is my
Well,
goal, 3 days
yeah, and
work.
I would not call it stupidly, because again, it's your approach, right? It's what produces your
Yeah.
covers, your amazing illustrations, just like Sam's approach produces his really cool, amazing illustrations. So, and that's one of the things that's always fun about these interviews is talking to authors, because it is so radically different, especially even in sometimes within a partnership where they're both writing together. Sharon Lee and Steve Miller were a great example of this. They had radically different approaches to how they wrote stuff. And then one of them would go back through and go, okay, does this conform to canon or not? And you know, their relationship was sadly broken up by his passing in the last couple of years. But you know, it's working relationship, and it's basically how you work is how you work, and if it works for you, awesome, because it brings us all this cool art to look at. And I think that's really it's neat to see that spectrum here. We've got guys that are, you know, using different totally different techniques to get a very similar end result, which is a professional very cool color cover for a novel. And then you got comic book stuff as well, which is, you know, I grew up on consuming comics, and especially like metal hurlant and heavy metal. You know, I eat that stuff up. That and Savage Sword of Conan. Those were my three as a teenager that I just devoured all of those. They were so good. And you know how much that's informed our pop culture, science fiction wise. You know, Fifth Element. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, it's a really kind of distinctive art form." I'm like, "Yeah, it sure is." It's not.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not from that film though.
That's all Messier.
Yeah,
Yeah. Speaking
exactly.
of metal.
It is not. It's not from the film. So yeah, it's really cool to see that the similarity in creating art, it's different avenues to get there, but you get there, right? And the one thing that is kind of cool about Dan's process, though, is that there's going to be 30 or 40 sketches that are almost as good or there, that you can see the cool stuff there that we perhaps lose in the digital medium, that we don't, and the I don't want to call them the failures, but the cutting room floor, the people that were the illustrations that were kind of put aside because they weren't quite what I wanted or what the client wanted, but they still work really cool. So that's pretty fascinating stuff too. Is that it's interesting what we're gonna as we enter into this era now where so much of our art is generated digitally. What are we losing? That that we're not getting of the quote unquote, we're not going to have Da Vinci's Notebook anymore,
Right.
unless
That's
we
one of the
have.
saddest parts, about this
Yeah,
job is that every cover that gets chosen, there's 2 rejected sketches that are usually just as good. So it's like, I think I'm pushing like 400 book covers now, which means there's like
Wow.
1,000 unused covers I've sketched that I like sank thousands of days into. But that's how it goes.
that's kind of a fascinating thing. Is that could you put that into a chat book and just be like, hey, check this out?
Yeah. Yeah, I try to show them off and stuff, but it's funny, they're never reusable either. Like almost not even for the same book in the series. I don't think I have ever successfully reused an unused sketch.
Mm. I started reading a series because of Dan's illustrations.
Oh,
Almost 12 years ago. It's I can't even remember the name of the series right now, Dan, but you'll know who it is. It's Mercedes.
oh
Who?
yeah, the Mercy Thompson series by
Thank
Richard
you.
Briggs.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. Yeah, I remember seeing your cover on the first book of that. I was like, wow, I've got to read this. And I
Oh,
picked
cool.
it
I
up
did
and
my job then.
yeah, yeah, you did. You did. You did a great
For
job.
sure. No, that's one of the coolest things about the learning the job as I have learned it over the course of the last 8 months, 10 months now, I guess. As an editor, is how much other stuff was going on that you're never aware of as a consumer. In the process, how quickly. I mean, to my mind, to think that Sam came up with that cover in 2 days blows my effing mind. Like
Yeah.
it really does. That was how quick it goes. And just as the same as Pierluigi coming up with that cover in a week or two. It just, blows my mind that is how quickly we can work, in this medium and have such a finished, attractive product at the end of it, that, kicks the tar out of anybody, AI or, any of that stuff with multiple fingers and all the weirdnesses that are going into the AI stuff. The uncanny valley, as I call it. But so we've talked a little about your creative process. Is there any kind of relationship between your pet projects and or your just the projects that you do for yourself and your professional projects? Does such a thing exist, or do you just kind of put a heart and soul into every single project?
I'll,
Uh,
Dan?
do I get someone? Look, I got a background, by the way. I had to make one. You did not send me mine, Griff. It's your petard. Yeah. Uh, Repeat the question. I spaced out there for a little bit as I was doing,
So
doing that.
that the your relationship between your work that you're getting paid for
Oh,
versus
personal.
something you might want to just have for posterity or that just satisfies an urge that you wanted to illustrate. Have you ever illustrated a book because you're like, this book was so good and I would have done so much better?
Oh, I'm so lucky I've gotten my dream jobs, but I'm the worst. I'm the worst at work-life balance. I never do personal work. There's just no time for it, and quite honestly, like the things I love to paint more than anything is this. I love comics. I love sci-fi fantasy. I want to do like the cover for Mercy Thompson. I want to do the cover for Penrick's Progress. That's what I would be doing in my spare time. I've been really fortunate that I've gotten most of my dream jobs. It's Sanderson, it's Butcher, it's Rothfuss, it's Briggs. I don't know that I would be doing anything different. And honestly, in 20 something years, I think I've done maybe 2 personal pieces
Wow.
in that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that also is kind of one of those, never take your passion and make it your work if you don't want to make it your work, right? If you're working at it and you're passionate about it, it's not really work. But you'll certainly find out if that's not the case, because all of your time will be consumed with working. How about you,
Yeah.
Pierluigi?
It's almost the same. Like I did my personal work like for 10 years, but now since 2022, I didn't make any personal piece because I don't have time.
Right.
Uh, the only difference is that when I make a piece for me, for myself, I have more freedom. I don't have to think about putting text on the
Right.
image. I have the freedom, total freedom. And so if I want to make a mark that has no sense, but I like it, I make this
Yeah.
mark, and I don't mind if someone
Yeah.
asks why or why not. So the only difference is this. But when I have to paint like an horror cover or a sci-fi or a fantasy cover, I like this kind of genres. So I like to express myself with this kind of illustration. It's just a different approach because I have to solve a problem when I do an illustration for a cover. And when I do something for myself, it's just enjoying the process for myself.
Very cool. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, doing work for myself has been really important to me, especially starting out because I was working in a game studio. I was doing all kinds of grunt work. I was an animator for a while, and so I found relief from doing some of the more monotonous stuff by doing stuff for myself. Um, I went through a period where I did nothing but soldiers for 10 years. Professionally, that's what I did. I animated, concepted, and even did like final ad art of soldiers. And so the freelance stuff that I would do, when I got to that point that I could freelance was kind of a welcomed relief. And then I started getting more variety in my career, and my freelance kind of was taking off. And so there was a period where, I realized I hadn't done something for myself for a couple of years. And, so but I always learned more when I was working for myself. And so, for me, kind of my whole career has been trying to make a living while developing skills, and so a lot of times, that's where I was learning skills for the next job, because
Right.
games is always, you work a few years, then you get laid off, and you got to go find the next job.
Mm.
And so I always had some skills banked for the next job I have. And I have a funny story that involves Dan. I don't know if Dan remembers me, but in 2010, I went to the illustration master class that Dan was hosting in Boston.
I do recall that. Yeah,
Okay. And I had been working with photos and 3D for about 5 years at Ubisoft. And for some reason, I was very slow on the uptake, but I had just gotten the idea that I could do, a little bit of photos, a little bit of 3D, and some Photoshop brushes, and kind of put that all together to make a semi-realistic image. And I figured that out just before the illustration masterclass, and I got the assignments a month before, and I got all my assets together to do three of the assignments that week, and then under Dan's tutelage and Irene Gallo was there, and Donato was there. I was able to like work that system together and just kind of like get Dan's feedback and everyone else's feedback. Is this working? And I was able to kind of figure out how to use 3D and 2D together to make illustration. And that was kind of like a really wow moment for me 15 years ago that really kind of kicked off, you know, in fact, that was a couple months before I started illustrating for Baen. And I think it was Irene Gallo who sat next to me who called Tony and said, you need to look at this guy, or maybe she gave me Tony's name and I reached out to her, to Baen, because of that experience.
And Irene is was, I'm not sure if she still is currently, but she was for Tor, the cover and art. I can't remember the title that she was under at that time. But
director and then creative director
art,
for books for a long time. Christine Folzer now.
Yeah.
Pete Alstrom. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you on the last bit there.
Or it's Pete Alstrom. One of them is Tor.com now, and the other's Tor. So it's either Christine or Pete. But yes, Irene was a force for decades, and she's really good about. It's one of the nice things about this industry. Like, you know, I know Pierre from stuff. I know Sam from stuff. Is that it is this very much pay it forward kind of thing, and art directors share their artists, and artists share their art directors, and it is a rising tide.
Yeah, that's certainly also on the what's inside the covers is the same case as people knowing each other, being kind to each other, and helping each other out. When that was my break with 1632, and my first fiction sale was the same thing. Chuck Gannon was like, "I can't do it, but here's a guy who could," and that was it right there. So yeah, I totally get that, and it's neat when you forge those professional relationships, and the student is later on able to talk about something that happened while they were in a class. That's always a very fascinating thing, especially for somebody like me who didn't do well in college. Like, you know, I did learn a few things, which is just how to not be a jerk and leave the doors open, kind of thing. And it's amazing what you'll learn. And yeah, the same thing as Sam as well, is, you know, learning the skills now that'll stand you in good stead later is always a useful skill to have, and it is a skill. Not everybody can do it. So specific projects, just which Baen cover are you most proud of, and why? Dan?
Ooh, well, I just had to pick one real quick. I think I'm trying to think like which my favorite is. This one, this is Dean Ing's cover. It was called, when Tony hired me, The Life and Times of Charlie Hardin, but I don't know if that's still the title it maintained. I think it was changed a little bit when print. And it's funny. It's like it's when I'm commissioned, that's the title of it forever in my head.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, just for fans out there, titles do change. They change with frequency, sometimes far too late for anybody's comfort.
They go, no, we got to fit this on the cover.
Yeah.
But I think a good cover to me is one that kind of goes beyond the book itself. Like, if somebody can look at this piece of art outside of the context of a book cover and still enjoy it, that's the mark of a good painting to me. And I think this one does that for me. It's a lot of like, my mom likes it. If my mom likes my piece, I did a pretty good job. Most of the stuff I paint, she would not like.
Right.
So yeah, I might opt for that one.
It's, again, I keep drawing these parallels. I really, same thing for me with writing. It's like some of the stuff my mom's like, nah, and other stuff she's like, oh, this is pretty cool. So how about you, Pierluigi?
I think the one I'm most proud of is Rise from Ruin.
Yeah.
Because it came very easily. I just envisioned it since the beginning. And I don't know, it's like the rare moments when you have like something that arrives to you and you just put it out.
Yeah.
And you have to do it and refine it.
Well, and it was nominated for a Dragon Award too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. Yeah, I was next to Michael Williams, so it was a
No
tough job.
A rising tide, right?
Yeah.
And that's for me, that's a very special cover as well, because that's the first book that I edited for Baen. So
Oh,
I
awesome.
got to edit Melissa's amazing words. She set up an incredible world that's very reminiscent for those of us that are a bit older of Anne McCaffrey, and those, like the White Dragon cover is so amazing.
Dragon's Return cover.
Yeah,
It's one of the things that made me want to paint.
yeah, yeah. And that inspired Casey Azell and Melissa both to join the Air Force because they were going to fly dragons. Right.
Wow.
So, you talk about an illustration echoing and reinforcing and surpassing, in many cases, the content of the book. Those were amazing times. So, and again, you captured Pierluigi, you captured that amazingly with your Griffin, which, again, irony because of my name. I was having to read my name over and over again, and people were calling it the Griffin book. And I'm like, that stop. But if you guys haven't seen that illustration, it's pretty cool. Rise from Ruins, the title of that book. And it is definitely well served by that illustration, that cover illustration. How about you, Sam?
No, I just say Pierluigi's. That's my favorite cover of his too. It is a beautiful cover. Great
Thank you.
job.
Thank you so much.
I think for me right now is I think 1919, last year's was it Rise of the Romanovs?
Romanov Rising, I think, is
Okay, yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
I
again, title might have changed.
I think that was fun for me because it was historical fiction and it gave me the challenge of researching and painting, what the Russians would have been wearing in the
And
1900s
yeah,
war. And I had a pretty face on it, and I since it was a winter scene, I kind of muted the colors. Usually, I'm a pretty colorful guy, but got to mute stuff a little bit more. So that's my favorite right now. I'm hoping to get more covers like John Ringo's, the cover that's up now for him. I'm hoping that my superhero stuff kind of sits in a little bit more. I'm working on superheroes. Not quite happy with where I'm at right now. It's an area I've got to grow into more.
Superheroes are particularly hard. Like with such a weird subset of like fantasy illustration, but it's like, yeah, you almost can't paint them too realistically, or they stop looking right. It's a
Yeah.
fine balance. I'd also like to add that my favorite cover is one that kudos to Tony for giving to me because it's not typical of my portfolio. If you had looked at my portfolio, it's nothing but zombies and vampires and tattooed girls. And it takes a really good art director editor to be like, oh, I think this artist can handle this thing that's a boy and like a 1940s car. That nothing in my portfolio said I was the right artist for that job, but
Yeah.
she took a chance on me for it, and it's now one of my favorites. It was this chance to try something a little different and stretch my wings, and I love that. So.
very cool. Yeah, the Romanov Rising. Those are very distinctive colors, and you kind of got to mix the princess and the soldier with a different
Mhm.
color scheme. It is different because again, now I'm just kind of assembling because it's a name. You guys are a name until I meet you, right? And all I see is the art that you make, and it's incredible. But I'm going through and I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, now I remember that, and it's kind of assembling an image for me as to how these things came about. And it's interesting about the soldier stuff that you did all that soldier illustration before, and now we go into that
Right.
one.
Hmm.
So, are there any illustrations that really kind of challenged you, and you were just like, man, you were busting your head open about trying to get it to work out? You don't have to name it if it was something that ended up being less than you wanted it to be. But if there's anything like that, it'd be kind of fascinating to hear that story. And I'll ask for a volunteer on this one. I won't call anybody out.
I think my hardest Bane cover to date might have been my first one, which was the Wild Side anthology. And Tony had reached out to me, and I was booked solid, and she needed a cover in a hurry, which is like I normally book 6 months in advance. And part of my negotiation was like, I'll do it, but you got to let me do whatever I want. And she was like, okay. And then after that, I was like, I have no idea what to paint. People have been telling me what to do for 20 years, and I've never just painted whatever I wanted. And then I was like, crap, it's all on me now. I didn't know, I choked. I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, be
But
careful what you wish for, right? It's like, if I had
so
all
I
the
just
power, I would do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, no, it wasn't for me. But I ended up throwing every urban fantasy trope I could think of into one cover, and somehow it worked at the end. I was like, oh yeah, I do like that. But I remember stressing about it for quite a bit.
Nice. Pierluigi, you got anything?
Oh, yeah, for me, it's definitely the familiar spirit.
Yeah.
It was the most challenging, yeah, because I have I really loved the first cover that then made for the first book. It was like,
Yeah, the
it's
Cunning Man.
always been one of the cover I look at for inspiration, like genius composition. It was like an image that stick on my mind since a long time. And when I had to make this one coming after what then did, it was like a bit of an L for me.
Right.
And also because I had like 2 weeks to do the cover, and one of the 2 weeks I was like with a big flu, 5 days or 5 fever, so I was ended.
Oh,
Yeah,
horrible. Yeah,
Get
no, that's
into a
good.
series. Yeah, that's hard because it's now Pierre's forced to follow my sense of style because I kind of set the pace for the whole series
Yep,
too. It's
sure.
like you can't just make it look like it's really hard to fill another artist's
Well, and
shoes,
it's
no matter how
historical, and it's the American West. And that's one of the things I love about this cover is that the elements that you put into it, Dan, are there. But it's a different story, right? The Familiar Spirit's a very different story from the Cunning Man. And he's got it. Like he really captured the Ghostmaster, everything else that's going on in that story. He's got it. Pierluigi, again, you knocked it out of the park. That's a really, really good cover. The illustration for that is really cool. Sam, you got anything?
Yeah. I think one of the toughest ones I did was like the second Bane cover that I did. It had Cyclops fighting a space cyber tank, and it was such a odd combination of things, and I can't remember the title of the book or who wrote it. It was an okay book. I mean, it was a fun read. It was a fun read, but getting Cyclops into a space station and having a guy drive a cyber tank uh, in the space station through the Cyclops was just a stretch of the imagination for me, and so it was hard to kind of pull that one together.
I'm going to assume that
Yeah.
the same ones that were challenging made them particularly memorable. But
Yes.
we've already had a couple of examples of it. So one of my questions is being knocked off here is that you guys have given us some good, memorable experiences. Are there any ones that you wanted to add that are particularly funny or fun or that you had a weird model for or something like that where you were like, this turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to?
Bane cover in particular, or any cover.
Any cover's fine.
I'm trying to think. God, it's all such a blur. Really, just one bleeds right into another.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a Bane cover that I did maybe in 2018. It was an anthology, and I was using ZBrush at the time. I was playing around with ZBrush, and I just thought this is a great new tool. And so I decided that I would I would sculpt everything in this in this cover. I was going to have another cyber tank, and an army of mech soldiers, and so I set out to model all these guys in ZBrush, and I spent a month modeling. And at the end, I started to go through my process of putting it together and kind of painting over it. And it occurred to me at that moment that I had spent a month working as a concept artist, not an illustrator. And I realized that, it was worth the exercise, it was worth the training, but I didn't get paid anything more. And I still had to build the illustration, and it still had to work with the drama, with the colors, with the lighting. All that stuff is what I have to solve as an illustrator. And concept design is a subset of illustration.
Yeah.
So it's nice, it's important, but it's not as important as the overall illustration. And so since I did that, I just don't, I remember that lesson. I remember that lesson and try not to be a concept artist when I'm being paid to be an illustrator.
That's a very cool lesson to convey.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do have to be. It's funny that it is a step for every illustration. Like on your John Ringo cover here, it's like people don't realize, like, oh, you have to design this outfit. In addition, you're doing a concept artist job, figure out the coolest outfit for this. There's all these, like, I'm sure there's other iterations of that outfit people haven't seen that don't make it to the cover. And then you got to kind of put your time into it, because if it shows up on book number 2, it's like, no, you can't change it then.
Yeah.
So it's, I've made that mistake of like signing outfits that only work from the front, and then you're like, oh no, I got to do it on the back on book 2. That just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, how do you guys stay creatively inspired after doing covers and doing them for work and doing them to order as it is? Is there any special tactic that you guys use or individually might use?
Never-ending dissatisfaction. I think that's superpower. I'm just never happy with it. It's just this drive to be better on the next one, I guess, forever. But I think that's most artists and writers and everything, is this. It's always the next one, Hopefully you don't, like, I think it's one of the defining factors of really good artists is that passion. It's the one thing you can't teach. And I've been fortunate that it's just, maybe I need to rekindle it every now and then, but for the most part, I'm just this is my everything. I look at everybody else's work, and that just lights a fire under my butt. So,
I agree with Dan. There's always like the next one. The next one I'm gonna do better. But it's looking at other artists' work. We have a great comic book shop just down the road. So I'll go there sometimes. And then also I'm still working in games, and I'm still freelancing in other industries. And so a lot of times they cross-pollinate, the ideas that I'll be doing something for games, and I'll get a cover, and I'll say, well, I've just painted King Arthur for games. I wonder if I should use some medieval armor type for this character, for this space character. And that cross-pollination is kind of helps out a little bit.
Neat. Pierluigi?
Yeah, for me, it's like I spend all my money in books. So I don't have any vice. I don't smoke. I don't drink alcohol. I just spend all my money in illustration books. And so especially in this moment, I'm looking at old paperbacks cover, like pulp, horror paperback covers.
Yeah.
There are magazines on Amazon. I'm buying a ton of them, and I just flip through them to look at all the amazing paperback covers of the past. And this is really inspiring for me, as well as looking at, especially things like all the illustrators. I really love them. So this is inspiring for me. And of course, when I look at these pieces and I look at my pieces, I myself have to become better. And this is the fuel that keep me pushing forward.
Very cool. So this is a fun question. I just kind of wanted to launch this at you. We talked a little bit about it, heavy metal, that kind of thing. But if you could design a cover for any artist, book, or album, past or present, who would it be and why?
Probably Dune for me. I want to do an illustrated Dune. That's just mostly it's just my favorite book.
Yeah, very cool. Sam?
I've kind of done mine a little bit. When like a year or so after the illustration masterclass I had with Dan, I was living in Nevada, and the first Avengers movie was getting ready to come out, and I was so frustrated that a Justice League movie had not come out. And so I decided I'm going to do my own movie poster for the Justice League. And I started that year, and I wanted to do a seven Justice League members each, and have each character be their own poster, but them all connect together. And so I started that and just worked on it whenever I did, and it took me 6 years to finish.
Wow.
You know, whenever, just working on it whenever I could. You know, it's and but now I've got this great big poster, and I realized if you stack 7 images together like this, you have such an odd format that you can't do anything with it. It's worthless. Yeah, because it's like 1 foot high and 5 feet long, and that just doesn't look good on a wall. If I blow it up big enough, it's like too big to fit on a wall, and if it's too small, then it's like it's not really captured. You really can't see the magic of each figure.
Right.
So that was still a lot of fun. You know, it's like it was my passion project, and maybe someday I'll get to do an official Justice League cover or something like that. But
Very cool.
I grew up on the Super Friends, and so that was always kind of like that was my gateway into cartoons, into comics, into art. You know, it was the Super Friends. So
Neat.
For me, that was my passion project.
Very cool. Pierluigi?
If I can choose, I would like to paint the cover for Long Live Rock and Roll by Rainbow.
Say that again?
Long Live Rock and Roll.
Cool.
And I don't know if you are familiar with Rainbow Rising. Ken Kelly made the cover for Rainbow Rising. And it's an ant that grabs a rainbow. It's a very cool painting. I love it.
It is a cool painting.
For the next album, and I would like to paint the cover for Long Live Rock and Roll, which was the sequel of Rising. And there's a cover that is very well drawn, but I would like to paint a fantasy image for the song "Kill the King," which is one of my favorite songs of all times.
Nice. Just album.
Also because I like to listen to music when I paint, so this is very
That's part of
for me.
That's part of the reason why I asked that question, because album covers, there's so much cool stuff that goes on in album covers.
What a long art form. And LPs are certainly coming back, but they're just using the covers that are on the CD or whatever. But it's this giant 12-inch square that like it made people's impression of the music inside of that thing. It was like it was I suspect a lot of people's probably introduction to art. You know, Frank Frazetta's Molly Hatchet album.
Oh, Frazetta!
And it's like it was everywhere too. You know, like I think very few mediums have that same. Even now, books. It's not the same number of people seeing any Baen cover that saw that Molly Hatchet cover back in the day, because there was just so much more limited media for us to be exposed to that. That kind of impact and that scale, but nothing else that big either. I wish LP art, custom art would make a comeback.
I think that there's people trying to support it, but it'll never be the same scale as it was, as we were all kind of growing up and before the age of the CD for sure. But certainly now with the streaming services.
Yeah, it was designed to be large too. It wasn't like this small image that got blown up big. It was like this was designed to be held in someone's hands, like
Yep.
that big.
Yep.
That
And
was
flip it around and open it up.
art inside, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, and around the lyrics and the typeset, all that stuff was really fascinating. And then I still remember all the a friend of mine had all the Depeche Mode albums where they did the presses uh, in different colors. So it wasn't just a black vinyl; it was a yellow vinyl, a clear vinyl. They did all sorts of crazy stuff. So yeah, and so it's a whole design uh, process that went into those covers, listening to the music, and I'm sure enjoying a few substances while they did too.
One of my favorite artists is Pat Nagel, who people would probably recognize as just being the '80s guy, but Duran Duran Rio
Oh
cover
yeah,
is
for
like
sure.
it's just so
Yeah,
iconic and
I love those posters. There was really cool posters that you could find at the B
yeah.
Dalton and other bookstores, et cetera, as
Can't
well.
find them now. They're
And
pricey now.
yeah, what was the other one? The other one I just oh, Geiger. Speaking of
Oh
heavy
man.
metal,
Oh yeah. Emerson, Lake and Palmer's cover.
yeah,
Yep.
yep.
Geiger.
But
Amazing.
Alien, he was the idea behind Alien, the whole monster, the xenomorph, all that stuff. Another great museum, if you can get to it, in Gruyere, is his home and studio, and they've even got the bar that is done up in the Geiger art in France. So that's definitely someplace I would go. Again, I used to go there every time we had friends come to town in Geneva when I was living there.
Cool.
But yeah, no, it's uh, and the way in which those designers and illustrators have influenced the pop culture is pretty impressive, it's just crazy stuff. I'm always impressed by how the uh, basically something that's for commerce, right? We're just trying to make a living doing what we love. It can drag in so many different people with so much diverse talent and interest to make them produce something as remarkable as Rise from Ruin cover, John Ringo's Welcome to the Jungle cover, all that stuff, just all the different talents that go into it and the experience. It's rather impressive to me that we do this every couple of months, and it's repeated over and over again. And it's one of the things that the indie community hasn't quite grasped to the same extent, especially those that are relying on AI to produce their art. They're going to need to figure out some better way to do things, or else they'll be replaced by AI writing their books, just as they're trying to replace artists illustrating their covers, that kind of stuff. So it's one of the things that's traditional publishing, I think, has a leg up on other folks for supporting these varied and different artists over others, or the newcomers to the industry, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if we kind of the last of my quirky questions is, if you could collaborate with any other artist, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh.
Everybody looks a little uncomfortable.
I I'll go first again just because I think it's in my head. One of my favorite artists is Mobius, and his
Yes.
style is so completely different than mine. But I think that would be a fun. I want to paint over a Mobius drawing. His
Ooh,
design sense, painting it would be fun.
very cool.
Mhm.
Again, heavy metal. That was my introduction to all of his
Yeah.
stuff. And it's coming back. So apparently, hopefully, it's going to be actually like real.
Yeah, it is. Well, they've already kind of brought it back a little bit, yeah, and they're
Yeah.
reprinting a lot of those old things. So hopefully
Yeah.
it lasts. The trouble is distribution now. Local comic shops can't get it. It's not distributed by Diamond, so it's getting hard to find. But
Sam?
I would work with J.C. Leyendecker.
Oh.
I love his shape making. Just the way he stylized his images just blows my mind. I'd love to have a long chat with him about how to do that and still carry off a realistic or slightly stylized, realistic image.
How do you picture that collaboration working? Like one drawing, one painting, or both painting?
Oh man, I would be happy just to be just to take some classes from him
See,
for
that's different. No, you got to paint on JC Linedecker. You're gonna ruin JC. Like that's the problem. Is you can't pick anybody too good, otherwise you're just gonna bring it down.
yeah, that would be sad. Um, yeah, yeah. I think the airbrush artists of the '80s had something going on, you know, with shape making, with the frisket that they would use, you know, how they would paint, you know, they would you know, isolate an area, then blow in the paint, and they come out with a gradation, but they still have this shape in there. And
Was Nagel, was he airbrushes or no?
Nate who?
Nagel. You were just talking about him.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, Pat Nagel was actually just acrylic. Like people
acrylic.
don't think of them as acrylic paintings, but they are. They're acrylic on canvas, and he just painted very smooth.
I was just thinking because the shapes and the, you know, in Nagel's stuff was just, I mean, I still remember the eyes. Always the eyes and the eyebrows is always like blew my mind. And then the softness of a curve, but you know, the absolute angularity of some of the facial impressions that he left behind. Really impressive stuff. Pierluigi?
I honestly don't know because I don't feel good enough to collaborate with any of my heroes, and I don't want to destroy anything that they do. But if I can choose, a dream of my life would be like being a day with Frank Frazetta and look at him painting. Because if I have to choose just one,
Yeah,
it's him. For me,
yeah.
it's him.
His daughter has an Instagram account, Frazetta Girls, and she talks about stuff that's going on with their with the estate and everything that they're doing as well. So if you get a chance, there's also, you get to see all the magnificent Frazetta art. And I'm introduced to him through Conan. So again, everything has to go back to Robert E. Howard and Conan for me. But you know, amazing illustrations as well. So my last question, and I hope you've had a good time. I certainly have. I probably talked more than a good moderator should, but I enjoyed so much talking to you guys. Where can your fans find you, and any illustrations for Baen or elsewhere, or are you going to be at any conventions nearby or near to you?
You guys want to go first?
I'm easy. I don't have a presence. I don't have artwork out. Well,
I just saw you at Dragon Con.
well, yeah, I show up. I am a working artist. I do show up from time to time, and my artwork's out there. But I don't have a website. I don't. Yeah, I think I'm going to go to LibertyCon next year and you know, hang some paintings, and we'll see what happens there.
You don't have a website, Sam? You're going to bring the teacher back out on me again. Come on.
Yeah. I you know, I did for a while, and then I just gave up and took it down.
Social media? Anything?
No,
No.
nothing.
Probably healthier for it.
I mean, everybody that like 20 years ago, that was the norm, you know, and now we're all like, what? But,
Yeah.
For sure. Pierluigi?
yeah.
Oh, I have a website, which is maybe difficult to spell, which is like abbort.com. And I also have an Instagram account, which is not updated very frequently, but is more difficult to spell because it's in Italian. So I won't spell it, but you can find it on my website. If you go on my portfolio site, you can check the link to my Instagram. And about convention, I'll be in January in a convention, one of the biggest convention in Italy, and for like comics guys. So it's called Nerd Show. Nerd Show. Okay,
Of course.
and this is the nerd
Call it
show,
what
yeah.
it is.
It has the biggest artist alley of Italy.
Nice.
So it's a place where people can meet artists and we can talk, chat, and draw. So it's good for us also to make some network, to share experiences and like that.
Very cool.
And nothing else. But I would like to come to USA sooner or later, and I want to meet you all.
We'll hold you to that.
That'd be nice.
I highly recommend Dragon Con.
Yep,
Yeah.
Dragon Con's great. And I'm close to it and close to Baen. You're always welcome.
Where are
Okay.
you, Dan?
I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay. I'm
Which is-
in Atlanta, so
nice.
Yeah, it's literally his
Baen is-
neighborhood con. When he goes to Dragon Con, it's stepping out the
Lucky,
door.
that's right there. I just got through doing Dragon Con. Let's see. Coming up, I'm attending IlluxCon, which is a fantastic original art convention in Pennsylvania that a lot of artists exhibit at.
Yep.
It's not much as far as foot traffic goes. It's not like a pop culture con. It's more of a gallery exhibit. So I'll be
Well, it's
there.
also
probably
it's a huge networking con too, right? For
big
illustrators.
network,
Yeah.
obviously, yeah. And I just go there to hang out and help foster the community a little bit. After that, what do I have? I have Dragonsteel Nexus coming up in December in Salt Lake City. That one I'm really stoked about. I'm one of their guest of honors there, and I should have some new art on display there. I just did another. It's funny getting to redo. I've done Warbreaker, Brandon Sanderson's Warbreaker book twice already, and I got to do it a third time for the trade paperback version. So I'll have that on display. I'm stoked about it.
Very cool.
After Dragonsteel Nexus, I have OAX in Florida, which is an original art comic and comic card convention expo in Orlando, right next to Disney. So it's a nice trip. And as far as following me, it's just my website, dandosantos.com. I'm on Patreon, I'm on Instagram, and I try to be pretty good about, I've been posting a lot of little sketch card things I've been doing lately, so I've been better than usual about posting, but
Cool.
that'll come and go, I'm sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on this. This was just an idea I had, and thought that we want to get some exposure to some of the great art that goes into our covers and the covers around the world and the illustrations, and wanted to find out a little bit more about each of you. So I very much appreciate you coming on the Baen Free Radio Hour, and hope to have you on again. Maybe we'll get some other artists to mix in, and we'll see what we can do as far as that's concerned. For future episodes, and maybe do a State of the Union kind of thing every couple of years or a year. If you guys had a good time, I don't know if you did or not, but
I did. Thank you for having
I
me,
did.
Griffin.
yes,
for
thank
having
you
me.
very much. It was good.
Oh.
Good to see everybody. Thanks, Griffin.
all right. And now, as promised, one jump ahead. John Moore is a nanotech-enhanced soldier of fortune. Lobo is an AI, a living weapons and intelligence platform of enormous destructive potential. Two very dangerous wolves in a galaxy of deadly corporate and paramilitary predators. But Moore has grown weary of the killing, and just once he'd like to finish the job without leaving a trail of blood behind him. Not going to happen. Not on a pristine planet called Macon, where two gigantic corporations vie for control of the local jump gate and access to the riches of an undeveloped world. Dealing with a kidnapping and extortion scheme is only the beginning for Moore and Lobo as they work to stay one jump ahead.
The spider turned red. Its software hacked faster than I would have guessed the Zycheck bots could have managed. It served me right for not spending more to buy some stall routing through interference sats. I turned off the unit, left the bar, and headed down the street. A couple of blocks over, I found a metal shop with acid etching gear and paid the price of a lovely office welcome sign for the privilege of dropping my now dangerous comm into a small tank of waste acid. I watched as it dissolved, wondering why I ever bothered to believe the easy path to anything would succeed. I wasn't going to let Chung keep his bounty on me, and to get him to remove it, I had to be able to meet with him. So I was back to having to abduct another executive. I hoped talking would work this time. With almost all my heart, I did not want to have to kill another one. almost. Only because a life of violence leaves you with permanent deep structure damage, a depth of darkness you never understood was possible until long after the actions that caused it. I knew that if killing proved to be the only option, I would kill. Not all people think of their options the same way I do, and at some level, I'm sure they're better for not thinking that way. I wish I could remember what it was like to be one of them. Chapter 13. Lobo was as pleasant coming out of storage this time as he'd been the last. "I believe," he said, "that I was foolish enough to previously assign dirt-bound loaders the title of stupidest machines in existence. After this most recent stay in storage, I would consider myself lucky to have one of those gloriously intellectual devices to talk to. Every loader in the facility was out on assignment, and the hangar's shielding stopped all transmissions in and out. So all I had for company was a small squad of cleaning bots. Their little brains, and I use the term charitably, really what little capacity they possess amounts more to computing clumps than actual brains, find nothing more fascinating or conversation-worthy than the amount of dust that has accumulated since the last cleaning, or, if it's a particularly exciting day, how a group of them might best cooperate to nudge an especially large piece of trash into a receptacle. Thank you so much, John, for helping me realize how good my life had been before." "Osterlad knew about you," I said, "and Chung offered Osterlad the bounty on me. So I had to assume Chung knew about you too. Consequently, when you weren't actively involved, the most logical option was to keep you completely offline so Chung couldn't find you. I do possess significant anti-detection measures," he said, "and unlike some machines, and if I may say so, some humans I've recently spent time with, I constantly work at improving myself. I've incorporated into my online arsenal my own sanitized and customized versions of every major blocking bot out there. I'm expert at mimicking both satellites in decaying orbits and a wide range of standard relay and surveillance sats, so I can hide for long periods of time in space, time I could use, by the way, to befriend the local sats. I can do none of this, of course, while I'm sitting in a shielded storage hangar, listening raptly to today's dust reports." I shook my head and sighed. I needed to keep Lobo busy, because boredom made him unbearable. "I'm sorry," I said, "for putting you away again." "Your apology means so much," he said, coming as it does after a second stint in storage immediately preceded by essentially the same words. I considered disabling all his emotive programming, but even if that were possible, doing so would also render unbearably boring the one entity I could count on being able to talk to. Working with him was, I had to admit, a better choice than silencing him.
This has been the Baen Free Radio Hour. Thanks for joining us at the heart of science fiction. Join us next week as Jeremy Como interviews Tim Powers on his latest magnificent novel, The Mills of the Gods. And later, we continue with part 40 of One Jump Ahead by Mark L. Van Name. Score by Ruth Judkowitz.